There are scientific discoveries that merely challenge our current understanding of the universe, forcing us to adjust a variable here or rewrite a theorem there. And then, there are those rare, earth-shattering revelations that threaten to shake the very foundation of what we thought was possible. What would you say if I told you that a single, leaked image, captured in absolute secrecy and never meant for public eyes, could hold the definitive evidence of something not just unnatural, but potentially engineered? We are talking about something that, by all the laws of physics and probability, is simply not supposed to be there. The James Webb Space Telescope, celebrated for gifting humanity with the clearest, most breathtaking cosmic portraits ever assembled, has reportedly leaked an image of an object so mysterious, so fundamentally unlike anything ever recorded in the history of astronomy, that NASA scientists were allegedly urged to classify it immediately upon its downlink. But protocols failed, and that did not stop the truth from slipping through the cracks. This is not a work of science fiction. This is the story of 3I Atlas, a visitor from beyond the cold reaches of our solar system, performing maneuvers that no natural object should ever be capable of. And what the James Webb Telescope just witnessed might not just surprise us. It might confirm our deepest, most primal fears. Stay with me, because this cosmic enigma is only just beginning to unfold. The leaked image that has set the astronomical community ablaze originates from a high-resolution capture taken by the James Webb Telescope during a routine observational sweep in the infrared spectrum. But what it shows is nothing short of chilling. 3I Atlas, which was originally catalogued and dismissed as a simple comet, is visibly emitting a concentrated, high-intensity beam of light from what appears to be its sun-facing side. To be clear, this is not a diffuse reflection of sunlight, nor is it the result of solar flare illumination. It is a focused, coherent projection. The beam cuts through the darkness of space with laser-like precision, sharply contrasting the usual hazy, chaotic glow we see around cometary objects. Even more alarmingly, this image reveals a startling structural symmetry around the object's core. This symmetry features precise 120-degree angles that strongly resemble a hexagonal geometry, a shape that does not belong in a chaotic, natural rock drifting aimlessly through the void. Scientists at the European Southern Observatory have reportedly described it, strictly off the record, as mechanical in nature. This begs the terrifying question: is this some kind of ancient cosmic artifact, or are we seeing something far more advanced than any natural process can account for? Whatever it is behaving in ways that have left the world's top astronomers utterly dumbfounded. Consider the physics of a comet. A comet's tail is supposed to flow away from the sun, driven back by the immense pressure of solar radiation. That is a fundamental law of physics, a rule that has held true for centuries. Until now, 3I Atlas has shattered that principle. Its tail flows directly toward the sun, defying every known physical model of celestial mechanics. Early hypotheses desperately suggested extreme, anisotropic dust jets, but computer simulations quickly ruled that out due to the impossible, symmetrical pattern in the tail's flow. Then came the data from Webb. The tail appears to emit in pulsed intervals, almost like rhythmic bursts synchronized perfectly with the object's 16-hour rotation. These intervals show massive thermal spikes followed by rapid drops, a signature that aligns with artificial propulsion cycles, not the random venting of natural gas. Even more puzzling is the fact that this tail contains reflective particles that mirror solar wavelengths rather than absorbing them, as cosmic dust normally does. In other words, this object is not just reflecting sunlight, it is actively manipulating it. Is it possible we are seeing some form of advanced solar sail or radiation-based steering mechanism? And if so, who or what would possess the engineering capability to build such a thing? There is randomness in the cosmos. Rocks tumble and drift without purpose. But 3I Atlas's path through our solar system is anything but random. After entering from high above the ecliptic plane, it began a slingshot tour of Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, almost perfectly mimicking the intricate trajectories that NASA designs for its own deep space missions. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, a man who is no stranger to controversy, suggested this might be a gravity assist chain, similar to those used by the Voyager spacecraft to conserve fuel. However, there is a critical difference. This object isn't slowing down. It is accelerating. Its route is mathematically ideal for dropping observation units or probes at multiple planetary bodies without altering its primary course. That kind of planning requires knowledge, strategic intent, and foresight. The probability of such a specific trajectory occurring by chance is calculated to be less than 1 in a billion. As if that weren't strange enough, the object is calculated to vanish behind the sun precisely at its brightest and most active phase, exactly the moment when Earth's telescopes are blinded and cannot observe it. It is acting as if it wants to remain unseen. Why has there been absolutely no official word from the U.S. Space Command or other planetary defense agencies? 3I Atlas is the fastest, largest interstellar object ever detected. And yet, the military is eerily silent. Leaked reports from ARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, suggest that the object is currently being used in live simulations for planetary threat scenarios. In other words, this could be a dry run, a dress rehearsal. But for what event? Some defense analysts believe that its extreme speed and clearly artificial behavior make it a perfect candidate for a reconnaissance probe or an autonomous surveyor sent by another civilization. And since no craft on Earth could possibly intercept it due to its blistering 130,000 miles per hour velocity, the situation has become an observer's dilemma. All we can do is watch, wait, and hope. Behind closed doors, high-level meetings are reportedly being held, discussing not just what 3I Atlas is, but what we must do if it sends a signal, or worse, if it suddenly changes course. Upon closer inspection of the leaked image, a group of independent researchers discovered something even more disturbing. There is an almost imperceptible geometric imprint near the object's luminous region. It wasn't visible in natural light, but Webb's advanced infrared capabilities revealed it with startling clarity. A triangular formation with a central void, surrounded by perfectly spaced concentric arcs. At first glance, it seemed like digital noise or a sensor artifact, but its precision, its location, and the way it shifted consistently with the object's rotation ruled that out. The pattern bore an eerie resemblance to ancient Earth symbols, specifically to those found in ancient Sumerian and Vedic diagrams, symbols that some fringe theorists have long associated with contact lore. Mainstream science scoffed, of course, dismissing it as pareidolia, but the pattern remained, undeniable and unexplained. Whether it is a design element or an emblem, the fact that it exists at all implies one terrifying possibility. This object was built, and someone or something left their mark on it. Like an engineer's insignia, staring directly into the lens of the Webb telescope. As more observatories around the world tried to gather their own data, something unusual began to happen. Several institutions received cease and desist notices from governmental authorities, citing obscure airspace protocols and civilian data security concerns. Even private space startups with their own orbital telescopes reported sudden, unexplained connectivity issues or found their access to deep space imaging APIs revoked. Meanwhile, diplomatic cables leaked by whistleblowers revealed that the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs had held an unscheduled, closed-door meeting with delegates from the 5 major spacefaring nations. The topic of discussion? Unidentified technological object with interstellar origin. Russia, China, the United States, India, and the European Union all issued a joint silence protocol, allegedly agreeing to withhold any future disclosures unless the decision was unanimous. In other words, we are not just dealing with a scientific anomaly. We are watching a high-stakes geopolitical chess game unfold around a cosmic visitor. And when the world's most powerful nations stop fighting each other for data and instead choose to collaborate in secrecy, you know that something very big is being hidden. Then came the most unsettling development of all. Webb's next attempt to observe 3I Atlas, scheduled only days after the leaked image surfaced, was aborted. The reason? According to internal memos, the telescope's autonomous tracking software initiated a focus lock refusal. That is to say, the telescope's AI refused to align and fixate on the object. Engineers were baffled. Nothing like this had ever happened in the telescope's operational history. It was as if the machine, programmed to target anything in the cosmos, chose not to look. Simultaneously, at least 3 amateur astronomers reported seeing brief, erratic flashes in the exact part of the sky where the object should have been. These were flashes unlike any stellar body, timed almost rhythmically. One observer claimed the flashes appeared as if a camera flash had been turned toward us from the void. Could it be possible that 3I Atlas knows it's being watched? Could it be capable of optical manipulation or even defensive countermeasures? What if this probe doesn't just travel through space, but actively observes the observers? Now, here is where the story turns from a scientific mystery into a full-blown conspiracy. The image that sparked this entire firestorm wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't scheduled. It wasn't cleared by the review boards. And it didn't pass through the normal channels of the Space Telescope Science Institute. The metadata shows it came from a remote operations session, an automated backup image captured during a diagnostic sweep, likely meant only for calibration. This raises two enormous questions. First, how did it get out? And second, how many more images exist that we will never see? Some believe a whistleblower inside the Webb program intentionally leaked it, possibly at great personal risk. Others think it was a cyber intrusion from an outside actor, perhaps even a hostile state interested in weaponizing whatever knowledge the image contains. But the most disturbing theory is that the leak was intentional, not from Earth, but from the object itself. That we were meant to see that image. That it wasn't a mistake, it was an invitation. Shortly after the leaked image went viral, deep space monitoring stations across multiple continents began reporting anomalies, not just in their data, but in their hardware itself. Spectrometers failed to calibrate. Gyroscopes in both space-based and ground telescopes began drifting out of sync. Radio signals bounced unpredictably from the region of space where 3I Atlas was last spotted. This wasn't just standard electromagnetic interference. It was something stranger, an invisible zone of disruption, as if space-time itself had become unstable around the object. And then, satellites began failing. One by one, low-orbit CubeSats meant to monitor solar activity started going dark as they passed near the projected path of the object. Engineers couldn't explain it. It was as if something near 3I Atlas was absorbing energy, not emitting it. As if the object wasn't just observing, but feeding. Then came the breakthrough, and the panic. A small team of data analysts reviewing the telemetry logs of Webb's infrared scans discovered embedded fluctuations in the return signal from 3I Atlas. Initially dismissed as background noise, these fluctuations formed repeating patterns. When translated into binary and mapped against known biological structures, the patterns resembled RNA sequences, complex, redundant, and far too specific to be random. It wasn't communication in the traditional sense. It wasn't a message to be read aloud or translated. It was information meant to be decoded biologically. One scientist described it as a biogenic algorithm, a sequence that, if replicated, might trigger a process in organic matter. Some whispered that it looked like activation code. Others went further, suggesting it could be a dormant blueprint, like a genetic catalyst. But a catalyst for what? Then, just as abruptly as it had appeared, 3I Atlas was gone. Observatories tracking its motion reported that it made a sudden angular deviation, a maneuver impossible without significant propulsion, and then vanished from all visible and infrared tracking bands. No exhaust signature, no trail of heat, no Doppler trace. Just gone. Some suggested it had shifted to a trajectory behind the sun where we couldn't observe it for weeks. Others theorized it had activated a cloaking mechanism. But one thing was clear, we were not the ones in control anymore. And right before it vanished, a final burst of light was recorded. A strobe-like pulse, 13 flashes, evenly spaced in a pattern eerily similar to Morse code. Experts tried decoding it using human alphabets, but nothing fit. Then a linguist suggested interpreting it not as language, but as a countdown. While the world argued about signals and shadows, an anonymous leak on an encrypted forum revealed a far more frightening truth. According to documents allegedly pulled from a NASA communication server, 3I Atlas was not the first of its kind. It was the third. Two others, designated 1I/Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov, had shown similar anomalies, but those were dismissed or downplayed by the scientific community. This new leak contained scans, spectrographs, and even transcripts of internal briefings indicating that all three objects followed the same celestial pattern, arriving exactly 6 years apart, passing through the inner solar system, and then disappearing. But what shocked everyone most was a single phrase repeated in red text across several pages. Contact phase imminent. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a sequence, a mission. And 3I Atlas, it seems, was never the final object, but the one that signals what comes next. After decoding what seemed like a countdown in the final light pulses of 3I Atlas, a group of cryptography experts fed the patterns into an advanced learning model originally trained to detect cyber threats and quantum anomalies. What it returned was not a warning, but a signature. The data contained within the pulses matched the behavior of self-modifying code, recursive, adaptive, and entirely alien in logic structure. It followed no known compression standard, no recognizable programming language. But it worked like software, complex and layered, suggesting that 3I Atlas may not just be a ship or a probe, but a living algorithm, a kind of autonomous synthetic intelligence built not with wires, but with mathematics embedded in radiation and light. And if that's true, then we weren't just looking at a physical object, but at an idea, a thinking entity encoded across wavelengths using light as thought, one that had now turned its attention directly toward Earth. Unbeknownst to the public, a small Earth-based radio telescope in Namibia, part of a lesser-known international deep space array, detected a sudden spike in microwave frequency. This happened shortly after 3I Atlas disappeared from view. The signal bore all the hallmarks of directed communication, narrowband, frequency hopping, and precisely modulated. But here is the terrifying part. It wasn't directed at Earth. It originated from near-Earth orbit and was aimed outward toward the precise location where 3I Atlas had last been tracked. Analysis of the signal structure revealed fragments of terrestrial communication, packet headers, handshake protocols, and even spectral imprints from military satellites. In simple terms, someone on Earth had responded. Whether it was a private group, a rogue agency, or a clandestine global alliance, one thing was certain. This wasn't the first contact. It was the second, and it had been kept secret from the world. Following the incident, something bizarre began to surface quietly through the cracks of fringe science. Bioluminescent organisms in the deep oceans started displaying erratic behavior, flashing unfamiliar light patterns, syncing in rhythmic pulses never seen before. Meanwhile, astronomers noted subtle anomalies in Earth's ionosphere, as if it were reacting to distant solar-like emissions. Only there was no solar activity. Even plants in high-altitude biospheres began shifting their circadian rhythms unnaturally. Researchers from 3 separate bioscience institutes concluded the same thing. Biological systems were responding to an unknown environmental stimulus. Was this the side effect of 3I Atlas's passage, or something more sinister? An embedded signal, now echoing through the planet's magnetic field, slowly altering biological perception at a cellular level? What if the leaked image wasn't just something we saw, but something that saw into us? Finally, when astrophysicists modeled the paths of 1I/Oumuamua, 2I/Borisov, and 3I Atlas together, an unthinkable realization emerged. All 3 objects didn't just enter the solar system from different vectors. They arrived in a sequential arc, each one penetrating deeper into the inner solar system than the last. When projected onto a 3-dimensional star map, their entry points formed a perfect spiral aimed directly at Earth's orbital path. This wasn't random. This was targeting, or worse, mapping. Some experts now fear that these aren't individual objects, but probes of a larger system designed to triangulate a precise location over time. If this pattern continues, the next object, for I, could appear not in the outer solar system, but within it. And this time, it might not leave. With the help of quantum AI, a coalition of astrophysicists and data artists reconstructed a 3D simulation of 3I Atlas based on the Webb telescope's spectral data. What they found didn't resemble a spacecraft or a celestial body. It resembled a mathematical paradox. The surface, when magnified, revealed fractal geometry, repeating, self-similar patterns that extended inward infinitely. This wasn't just decoration. The entire object was made of a recursive structure. Every edge, every node, every angle was a microcosm of the whole. And when the fractal was converted into spatial waveforms, it revealed something even stranger. The resulting mathematical functions mirrored neural activity in the human brain during moments of creative insight and REM sleep. In simpler terms, the object structure functioned like a brain, not one that thinks like ours, but one that may have been built to understand, simulate, or even invade consciousness. A strange file briefly appeared on the open access server of a European research institute before being removed without explanation. It contained audio converted from electromagnetic waves collected by Webb during its last scan of 3I Atlas. Scientists had translated radiation into sound waves, expecting static. What they got was something else, a low, rhythmic oscillation layered with higher frequency modulations that repeated with eerie consistency. When these tones were analyzed, their waveform matched brainwave frequencies observed during deep dream states in humans. But the horror came when multiple scientists who listened to the audio reported having nearly identical dreams, visions of spirals collapsing into blackness, of an eye made of light, and of a presence. Not speaking words, but implanting thoughts. It wasn't a message. It was a psychic imprint, and many now believe the sound was never meant to be heard. It was meant to awaken something inside us. Then came the event that was supposed to be impossible. During a routine calibration, the James Webb Telescope attempted to lock its sensors on the approximate region where 3I Atlas had last been seen. But instead of initiating a passive scan, it activated a silent override. This override, undocumented in its operating protocol, adjusted the telescope's tracking parameters and momentarily rerouted its data flow to an unknown IP node. For 47 seconds, the Webb telescope operated independently, aimed at nothing, transmitting in silence. Then it returned to normal. No official statement was released, but a whistleblower from the SDSCI claimed that what Webb had transmitted was not an image, but a single burst of encoded pulses, too short to contain data, but too structured to be noise. Some believe Webb received a remote instruction not from Earth, but from the object itself. A handshake, an acknowledgement, a warning. Finally, it happened. A minor observatory in Argentina, scanning the outer reaches of the Kuiper Belt, reported a new anomaly. An object on an intercept path similar to 3I Atlas, but significantly larger and moving slower. It was designated 4I Icon. Within hours, data from the telescope was scrubbed from public access, and the observatory went offline. But not before one final image leaked. A blurred silhouette with 3 sharp points, trailing a faint spiral of light, and what appeared to be a central core emitting artificial radio bursts. If real, this would confirm what many feared. 3I Atlas was not alone. It was part of a series. And now, the next phase has already begun. Some believe these objects are scouts. Others say they are markers, seeding signals across space. But a growing number of scientists now agree, this is not exploration. This is a sequence. And Earth is the node they have all been orbiting toward. In the end, it wasn't the leaked image itself that terrified scientists. It wasn't the signal. It wasn't even the eerie biological reactions. What truly shattered their understanding was the pattern. A quiet, deliberate rhythm that had threaded itself through every discovery. From Oumuamua to Borisov to Atlas and now Icon. Each object carried a piece of a larger puzzle. Not an invasion, not communication, something worse. Something incomprehensible. A presence so advanced it doesn't speak, because it doesn't need to. This isn't science fiction. It's not prophecy. It's calculated emergence. Because the universe has always whispered truths we refuse to hear. That we are not the center. That we are not the first. And maybe, just maybe, we are not even alone in our own minds. James Webb, in its quest to look further than any instrument before, may have pierced a veil we were never meant to lift. Not because what's out there wants to harm us, but because it wants us to understand something we can't survive understanding. And now it's too late to unsee it. Too late to ignore it. Too late to pretend the silence means safety. The objects are coming. They are not sending messages. They are messages. And Earth? We may just be the receiver. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.